Welcome back to Inside the Lines. Happy Friday. You know what Friday brings. Lots of props, the prop party, deep dive. We have college football props, NFL props. We have some NBA value from our model. But before we do that, we do have the start of the World Series today. So let's bring in no other than John. And we're going to bring in Jake. Before we get into tonight's picks, let's talk a little bit about just an overall preview of this matchup. We don't have a large amount of value necessarily from the model on the series, but what do you guys see here?
Yeah, Mackenzie. And I mean, this is the week that MLB players, MLB staffers, and pretty much all MLB fans have been waiting for about 9 months now. So it's nice to finally come to this World Series week. It's not the two teams that most expected, but Diamondbacks and Rangers both deserve to be here. So we can get into this series a little bit. The Rangers are at minus 175 to win the series. Diamondbacks plus 155. As y'all can see, the Sims have slight value on the Rangers here, but not enough to play them. Personally, if I were to play the series here, I would go with the Diamondbacks just because I don't think a World Series should ever be this split in terms of odds. But I think you can also play the Diamondbacks and then see if they go up 1-0, and then you can play the Rangers and see if you can profit there. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, so I agree with you. It opened at minus 130 at one point on Caesars. It got as high as minus 185 for the series price yesterday. Now it's settled back into minus 175. And I wouldn't play anything at minus 175 for a series. But if the Diamondbacks do win tonight, then I'd consider playing the Rangers, depending on the value. But I think minus 160 is kind of where I'd set the line at in favor of the Rangers. But both teams have played great baseball lately, and Torey Lovullo, he just outmanaged the Phillies. And I know you talked about Rob Thompson not taking out Suarez last game. A big part of that is he just outmanaged the Phillies. That's why they won. He making all the right bullpen moves, and they have a very young bullpen. Didn't have many innings before that series. They just made all the right moves. So I know a lot of people are on the Rangers here, but Arizona is not a team to mess with.
Yeah, thanks for bringing up the sensitive topic, Jake. You will be removed now. All right, let's move into your play that you actually have for today. We'll talk about game one of the series, going with the first 5 play here.
Yeah, Mackenzie, I've been going back and forth on this pretty much since this matchup was set. I mean, I really didn't know which way to go. My original thought was play the Diamondbacks on the money line in the first 2 games and hope that they win one of these 2 on the road and profit there, because the Rangers didn't win a home game last series. But then I was thinking about it, and the starting pitching matchup is just too big of a difference for me. Zach Gallen, he's pitched well in his first 2 playoff starts, but he was really struggling, laboring through those. He left a lot of runners on base. So his stats looked a lot better than he actually pitched those 2 games. We saw that weakness kind of come to the forefront against the Phillies. He gave up 5 home runs in those 2 starts. He really struggled. He only struck out, I believe it was 5 batters total, 4 walks between the 2 starts. So I really think that's going to show in this series, especially against this Rangers lineup that really likes to hit home runs. So I'm going to go with the Rangers on the first 5 money line here to kind of play it on Eovaldi and fade Gallen.
Okay, I like the creativity there. Let's move to some player props that you have for tonight as well.
Yeah, we're going to go to some player props as well. We've got 4 today. Had to break it down there. Nathan Eovaldi over 15.5 outs, minus 130. This is by far my favorite prop. I think a lot of people are looking at it and assuming that it's a trap line, which I think it would be in the regular season, but there's not really such thing as a trap line in the postseason because literally anything can happen. So even books can't, there's no idea there that the books know what's going to happen. But 15.5 outs is just ridiculously low. He's pitched 18 outs at least in every one of his starts this postseason. He's been their horse, and he has the World Series experience. He didn't make a start in the World Series with the Red Sox in 2018, but he did come in relief and pitch 6 innings and pitch extremely well. Our next play is Zach Gallen over 1.5 walks. It's at minus 165. It's a little juicy, but that's because he's hit this number every single postseason start. I think with it being his first World Series appearance ever, and him trying to kind of pitch around guys because he's had those home run problems and knows that home runs are a big possibility with the Rangers, I think he's going to try to be extremely fine, pitch around a few guys. And I think that's going to lead to multiple walks. Adolis Garcia over 1.5 total bases plus 105. Like I said, Down has home run problems, and Adolis Garcia has hit home runs in 4 straight games. So I think that's a great opportunity at plus money. And then our last one, Christian Walker under 0.5 total bases at plus 130. He hasn't been hitting at all lately. He's been taking plenty of walks, but I believe he's just 2 for his last 22. So he's really struggling, and I think this is more than worth the play at plus money.
Yeah, and it looks like you have some agreement over here in the chat. Jake also likes Evaldi taking his 28.5 fantasy points on Prize Picks. So when you two agree on players, it's usually a dangerous, dangerous game in a good way. All right, that's all we have right now for John's picks. Now we're going to go into some college football here with Jake. Of course, the chat, keep asking your MLB questions, all your questions you have. The chat is rocking today. We can answer all those questions. So let's move to college football. Trying a new strategy here. We're looking at player props, showing you our model projection, what we have for them, and then showing you the line set by the odds makers. Obviously, what you see in green is where we have value on the over, and then we also have some value on under here as well.
Yeah, so the model projection is kind of like where we would set our line if we were a sports book. Roman Hemby, we had his over, I think, 19.5 yards a couple weeks ago, and that didn't hit. But we're going right back to it because we love this matchup this week. He had 63 receiving yards last week. He's being used more in the screen game. I know weather is it's a problem throughout the country this week, and that should benefit the running back in the receiving game. So I really like this play here. For Mario Anderson, we bet on his under rushing touchdowns against the Gators. He had a receiving touchdown, but we still hit that. This is on underdog. This time it's rush plus receiving touchdowns, and he's going against Texas A&M. And if you remember, Texas A&M had the #1 recruiting class 2 years ago. It followed 24/7 Sports. Oh, and I love that prop, Carson Steele, by the way, Nick. Side note.
We're always in lock agreement with Nick.
Oh yeah, I know.
Automatic.
He's all over
got us
it.
figured out.
Yeah. But so Texas A&M had the #1 recruiting class a couple years ago, and all those guys were on the defensive line. And South Carolina's offensive line is pretty rough. So we have them scoring a rush or receiving touchdown. Just 0.2, so it's 20% the Sims. Line's 0.5. So there's pretty good value, even if you put the VIG in there. Trevor Etienne. So I've been talking about all these Georgia props. So I had to put a Gator prop for this week. His line's at just 33.5. It makes sense that we like the over because Georgia's rush defense, they allow just 3 yards per carry at home, but they allow 4.2 on the road. This game is a neutral site game. It's 50-50. So I'd say somewhere in between those numbers is realistic, probably like 3.8 to 4 yards per carry. ETN is just shy of 6 yards per carry. If he gets at least 8 carries, he should hit this number. It's just a matter of if the Gators are down early, which could put him out of the picture here. So I don't mind playing him rush plus receiving yards at 47 just because they might need to throw the ball to him. Rocco Becht for Iowa State, his line's at 208. We have him at 226. It's 208 across pretty much every board: Prize Picks, Underdog, DraftKings. So I would definitely line shop there. But Baylor's allowing 240 yards passing at home. And if you look at Baylor's game log, they've played a lot of backup quarterbacks, and they're still allowing 240 yards per game to those quarterbacks when they're at home. Rocco Becht's averaging 225, so it makes sense that we'd set the line at 225, 226 here.
Mm-hmm.
The Harburg is actually, it's 108.5.
I was going to say, yeah, that looks like that's for me.
So if we had 226, that'd be great value.
Yes.
But we have them for 190, so not too far away from the 226. We have great value here. The line is Nebraska -2.5, -3. So, and they're at home. So that means that these teams are about equal in talent level. So there's a good chance that Purdue is ahead of Nebraska. Nebraska has to throw the ball. Yes, weather is a factor, but wind shouldn't be a terrible factor. This line's really low. So, I mean, I still think there's a 70% chance he hits this over. So I'd take it anyways, just with how low it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then Corey Kiner, he's the running back. I guess it all shifted up.
Oh, yeah.
He's at 44.5 rush yards. So he's on the Samuel Brown note. We have him at 52 rush yards. I mean, he's averaging 80 yards rushing per game. I just really like like this over. I'm surprised. I got at 41.5 yesterday. So I'm really surprised it's this low. They love running the ball in Cincinnati, and they have a dual threat quarterback. So they run the read option a ton and kind of should get 10 to 15 carries. So I really like this play. Samuel Brown, his line is at 58.5 on DraftKings, but on Prize Picks and Underdog, it's at 62. So you're getting 4 yards of value here if you play it on DraftKings. We have him at 68 yards, so we have 10 yards of value. I just like this play because he's hit the over in all but one game. And then Dylan Gabriel, he's hit over 2.5 touchdowns, rushing and passing touchdowns in 5 of 7 games this season. So he's been playing pretty well. And he hit this number when he played against Kansas last year. We have him hitting 3 this game. So I think that there should be like a 70% chance he hits it given those numbers.
Mm-hmm. And you were mentioning on it, Flex Friday rules have changed, so we can play Flex Friday with Saturday and Sunday picks, correct?
Yeah, so there's new Flex Friday. You just have to opt in, and you can only bet $20. Like before, you bet 33, and then you, which is like the ideal number because if you hit 3 of 5, you get 13.33 back, and you get $20 of net losses back. So that's the only problem with it is they limit the amount you could spend, but it's better because you could bet on any game that's available, as long as it's bet after 12 p.m. on Friday to midnight.
Mm-hmm. All right, Jake deserves a break after that. Those are great picks to look at for your Prize Picks stuff. Let's move into some NBA. Let's go NBA because I see some questions in the chat about the NBA, and then we'll hit NFL props after that. But let's start with a question we can ask for the model. Someone I love to fade, Ben Simmons. 6.5 points is the line. Do we have any value for him there?
Points wise, probably not. We haven't projected for 9 points, but maybe we're being optimistic. Ben Simmons has gotten off. I mean, he obviously can't shoot right now or never could, and he's been shooting all of his shots like right-handed hooks. Sometimes someone should probably tell him that, Ben, you're a lefty.
Yeah, valid. All right. Let's move into some plays we have value on as well. Let's see where they are. We'll start with Detroit at Charlotte. Charlotte's laying the 4. We have some value here, but you kind of want to wait on that over-under.
Yeah, I mean, the over-under isn't really the play here. So the odds makers line makes sense because last year Detroit was -11 on the road and Charlotte was -7 at home. 4-point difference, and there's other adjustments there. Public narrative, everyone's high on Detroit after they almost upset Miami, and Cade Cunningham's 3-point shooting actually looks pretty good from preseason to 4 for 9 in night 1. The model still likes Charlotte in this case because we project the same team total as the odds do, but we like Detroit to come under the roughly 110 that the odds would imply because Charlotte's defense is actually measurably better when Gordon Hayward plays. I know he's not known as a great defender, but they're 1.6 better in point differential when he's there, and they allow 3 fewer points per game. Could be a lot of reasons why that is, but I'm going more while Hayward's playing, and they do defend the 3 well at home. Charlotte, even last year they couldn't shoot it at all, but they held teams to 34% at home. So I kind of like that if Detroit shoots 33% or less, Charlotte can cover.
Mm-hmm. Let's move to another game. Actually, Derek had a great point in the chat too, with the Pistons looking to avoid a 3rd straight 0-2 start in the last 4 seasons, which would be not ideal, but we still like Charlotte there. Let's go to Toronto at Chicago. Chicago's laying 2 despite what happened the other night. We like the overvalue here.
Yeah, the model line here is 230. So it sounds like a lot because, and this is one of those rare cases where the betting lines move the opposite direction. It's gone down to 216.5 in some spots. So I guess it's a wait and see to see if you get even more. The model likes the over because both teams average 224 is a number that keeps popping up. Toronto road and away average game total 224. Chicago on the road last year 224. At home 225. Very consistent 224, 225 number. Chicago was terrible in game 1. Very low scoring game. They couldn't shoot very well. So I'm hoping that they have a little bounce back game and both teams come in over 109.
Mm-hmm. A game that you kind of want to wait and see on is the Clippers at the Jazz. Now, again, we were talking about historically teams with great defenses you usually think of, but it's not necessarily the case anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you think of Jazz, you think Karl Malone, and at least I do. I know I'm older than virtually everybody here, but Jazz have a history of being a defensive team, but they're not that anymore. Last year's games, they were at 235 game totals, and Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are known for their defensive prowess historically, but neither is really a shutdown defender at this point. The Clippers last year, they averaged 234 a night on the road. Much more than at home. So these teams are both indicating high-scoring games. Clippers played a high-scoring 234 in game 1 of the year. Over 225 was the line. Mm-hmm. And Jazz went over 233.5 with 244 in their opening game. So I would get on this if I can get it at 228 or less.
Okay. Let's take a quick break to the model. A few questions I want to hit. Big Cheesy asking about this Golden State game. If we have value on either the Warriors to cover or if we have value on the over at 238.
We did until with Draymond ruled out again. Draymond's incredibly important offensively and defensively. So we don't have value. We do have model value on the over, but I don't have model confidence in the over because again, Draymond, even though he can't shoot, he has this. The fact is the Warriors, I believe, shoots 2 percentage points better when he plays from 3, even though he's sitting there connecting on 30% of them. So that's a really positive impact. When you can go in there and stink, and then the team overall is better, that means you actually have a real, important contribution to how that offense runs. And Chris Paul, we'll see, how the offenses might end up scoring less if Chris Paul is playing major minutes as the main point guard. He kind of slows things down and tries to control tempo. So I don't know how that's going to work. So with such a radical shift from the last 8 years of Golden State Warriors to this year, I wouldn't put confidence in the over.
Mm-hmm. Let's go back to that Pistons game really quick. A question about Scotty Barnes, over 27.5 points, rebounds, and assists, and then Brogdon as well for a points.
Scotty, Detroit, Toronto, right? Chicago, Toronto. Scotty Barnes, we have 26.5. Barnes' problem is like he came into the league as a great rookie of the year, and he hasn't changed at all. So, but he's very consistent. So depending on the line is when the juice is 26.5, we have no model value there. The other player was
Brogdon, over 11.5 is the line.
Malcolm Brogdon in Portland. So again, I know he had around 11 his debut. Yeah, a big night on debut. I don't know. I mean, I obviously if they make him the starting point guard and make him the leader, that's fine. But they have Scoot, Shaedon Sharpe, Simons. It could be tonight's your turn, next night's my turn. Malcolm Brogdon has had injury issues, so maybe he'll be playing a lot of minutes one night and fewer the next. So. Right.
One of those guys you might want to wait and see on before we can start to make confident decisions there. Let's go to our 3 NFL props this week that you like. Lines that we feel like are misplaced, a little too low for all 3 of them here.
Yeah, the model line for Stroud is 1.6, which is not a big difference in 1.5, but I love it that you can get plus 115, I think, is the latest I saw. So Stroud's had 2 touchdowns exactly in 4 of his last 5 starts. Carolina's defense is tied for 9th for most passing TDs allowed. They played a lot of the top upper end passing offenses, but that's still a solid number to bank on. And I'm also banking on that Houston can't run the ball. They're averaging 3.2 yards per carry. But they have a pretty high 23.5 team total. Remember, scoring's down the NFL. So the most of their production should be coming through the air, including hopefully touchdowns. And there's always the extra motivation matchup with Bryce Young. Jaylen Warren is the model line for him is 28 receiving yards, which I like because, he accounts for 10%, a little over 10% of the team's receiving yards when he plays. And even though Kenny Pickett does most of his damage in the second half, he's still at 212 yards a game. So simple math, that would put the line closer to 22 if I was doing a simple calculation. And then Warren's been getting more usage and more snaps because he's kind of the more dynamic runner than Najee Harris. And, and he's had some, besides last week where he had one catch for -1 yards, he was averaging 4 receptions for nearly 40 yards with all over 19.5. So I kind of like his number there. Also, Jacksonville's run defense has been great. Pittsburgh really can't run the ball, so there should be hopefully a lot of nice little screen passes to him in 3rd and 7 situations.
And with the weather, as well as Derek's saying here, so could see a lot more short passes like that to the running backs.
Yeah, last one's Dante Foreman. So, I think the odds makers are not sure how to handle, the Chargers. Their pass defenses have been horrendous, but versus the run, they're allowing 47 fewer yards per game. So I think that reduced Foreman's number from like last year, this matchup, it probably would have been like 62.5, but then there's an adjustment there. Chicago with Bagent and not Justin Fields, as good as Bagent was, it was because they ran the ball almost 60% the last 2 weeks. And, Foreman, as the starting running back, has been getting 15, 16 carries the last 2 weeks and had 65 and 89 yards those back-to-back weeks. So we think that Rashawn Johnson might take some of the workload at running back. So I wouldn't be surprised. So we're projecting only 13 carries, but we are projecting a healthy 5 yards per carry, even though but for this prop to hit, I think as long as Foreman is double-digit carries, he can hit the over. And when he has double-digit carries, the over is 14-4.
Wow. Yeah, I like that there. I like the idea of keeping Herbert off the field as well. We saw that with the Broncos-Chiefs game a lot when they did the same exact thing. All right, so that's all we have time for right now. Feel free to ask us your questions on Twitter at any of our handles. We'll be happy to answer them with the model's value and with our projections. So with that said, good luck with your bets this weekend. Sunday night, look out for me and Steven to do an NFL Week 9 look-ahead show with the best value of the week that you're going to find before the steam starts to come in. So look for that right after Early Edge on Sunday night. But until then, good luck with your bets, and we'll see you guys later.